I'm flattered to be called Ambassador Gitenstein, but I am not Ambassador Gitenstein any longer. I speak for myself and not for the United States of America, but I speak as a citizen of the United States who cares deeply about this country. The stepping off point for my speech will be to remind people here in Romania of a speech that was given here some months ago in Romania by the Prime Minister of Hungary, in which he stated that liberal democracy was the wrong route for countries in this region, and in particularly in Hungary, he wanted to pursue the route of what he calls illiberal democracy. The occasion in which I spoke about this some weeks ago is a report that Don and I were instrumental in helping to develop, which was written by the Center for European Policy Analysis, and the title of that report was Romania's Tipping Point. It's this report right here. The thesis of this report is that Romania is at a tipping point. In the United States, we talk about a tipping point as being a place where a strategy or a development can go one way or it can go the other way. And so here in the fall of 2014, as you enter a very important presidential campaign and election, the direction of this country may well be defined by this election, but by other developments that will occur in the coming months and years. Now, my point is that notwithstanding what Prime Minister Orban says, that liberal democracy is dying, our theory in this report is that liberal democracy is beginning to succeed here in Romania. And if the recommendations in this report, which lays out an agenda and a strategy for moving to the next level of liberal democracy here in Romania, are followed, it will be a great development for all the young people in this room and for Romania generally. I believe it's important that all Romanians read this report, and that all of those in the so-called political class in Bucharest read this report, and hopefully all the candidates, not any single candidate for president, and all the leaders of all the political parties in Romania will embrace the findings of this report. I know, because I've talked with the Dean about this and other members of the faculty here, that the issues addressed in this report, transparency, rule of law, the quality of public administration, the administration of state-owned enterprises, where all the assets on the one hand and corruption on the other tend to reside in Romania, and the way political parties are organized in Romania is a focus of what this faculty spends its time on here in Romania. And so in conclusion, I would say that it's particularly appropriate that we discuss this here in this room today with this faculty, with these students, because I believe that you in this room will play a large role in deciding the future of Romania, whether it's through this report or through any initiatives in these 5 areas. Again, thank you very much and congratulations.
Mulțumesc și felicitări.
I want to read to you a quote from American President Barack Obama from June 4th this summer. Democracy is more than just elections. True democracy, real prosperity, lasting security. These are not imposed from the outside. They must be earned and built from within the country. The strength of democracy lies in citizens raising their voices, free from fear, and a growing civil society that holds government leaders accountable. Because governments exist to lift up their people, not to hold them down. Article 5 is clear. We Americans have a solemn duty, a binding treaty obligation, to defend your territorial integrity. And we will. We stand together now and forever, for your freedom is ours. Romania will never stand alone. I took 10 Romanians with me to Los Angeles and San Francisco a year ago to form RomaniaOne, and we never imagined that Russia would invade Ukraine. On Thursday and Friday, I was at a couple events in Washington with hundreds of people, and the assumption is that the Russians are going to try to reclaim everything that they lost in 1989. So I go back to what President Obama said. RomaniaOne is not about the military partnership between Romania and America. RomaniaOne is about the first two paragraphs, that we're helping Romanians make democracy their own. When I go to Washington now, the words that I hear about Romanians are, first off, they're trustworthy. The 60,000 Romanian men and women who served in Iraq and Afghanistan have proven themselves, in the words of two American generals, as the most trustworthy people they've ever served with. American IT companies collectively employ more people in Romania than any country in Europe. And when you hear people like Safra Katz, the president of Oracle, say why, it's because Romanians are the most creative problem solvers in Europe. This year I brought 3 leaders from Washington here to Cluj, and they said they've never been around young people so eager to learn, so willing to be mentored. So in Washington, when you hear the word Romania now, you don't hear Dracula, Ginex, Ceausescu, you hear trustworthy, creative problem solvers, and eager to learn. And that's why President Obama said what he said about Romania.
Este adeseori răspândită în România ideea aceasta că toți politicienii se la fel, oricine vine la putere, măsurile nu diferă foarte mult. Vreau să întreb pe dânsul din experiența de diplomat și reprezentant al SUA în România, dacă a observat diferențe considerabile între modul de a face politică în rândul principalelor formații politice. Și de altă parte, cum crede că poate fi crescută calitatea candidaților la prezidențiale pe termen lung sau chiar a clasei politice, a celor care ne reprezintă?
I think Don's got the answer to that in RomaniaOne, but it's also the role of you in this room to hold these candidates accountable. And I think this report lays out a couple of very good examples of where there's been very significant progress in reforming the state. Now that reform of the state was undertaken by Romanian politicians. I think a perfect example of what I'm talking about is the so-called cohabitation agreement that took place between President Băsescu and Prime Minister Ponta in the spring of 2013, resulting in the appointment of the Daniar prosecutor Laura Covashay, which in turn has resulted in significant convictions and prosecutions that have held some of these very oligarchs accountable for their acts. I think another example is, I serve on the board of Punctul Politicilor, and we've advocated a number of reforms in the equity markets and in the conduct of the so-called state-owned enterprises, and those reforms are beginning to be implemented by Romanian politicians. And the reason that's happened is because people like yourself have joined us in this fight. You just need to continue to do it. This is, as President John Kennedy used to say, a long twilight struggle.
To me, if you think about a dog, the politics are the tail. I mean, when you look, it reflects the culture. I had somebody in Hollywood tell us, when you look at countries that changed and real prosperity was built, he says it starts with values. What are the core values of a culture? Romanians and Americans have identical values. And then after values, slightly less important, is culture. If your culture is I don't care about politics,